Hello, I'm Larry Johnson. Welcome to Countercurrents. This is a special commentary. I think there have been a few things happening. You may have noticed. Um, the short story is this: Donald Trump set the Middle East on fire, started a fire in Iran, helped set Israel on fire, and now wants credit by virtue of getting a Nobel Peace Prize for putting out the fire that he started. So let me explain the dynamics of what's going on, because the events are still moving quickly. Right now, I'm recording this, it is Tuesday afternoon. So far, the ceasefire that Trump claims credit for, but I think the facts will point that Russia probably played the most important role in securing the ceasefire. That ceasefire continues to hold. But let's look at what Donald Trump has achieved. And why do I blame it on Trump? This attack that Israel carried out on June 13th was not a spontaneous event. It was planned months, if not years, in advance. It was designed to decapitate Iranian military leadership and key nuclear scientists, and then cripple Iran's ability to defend itself against aerial attack, and all predicated on the assumption that this would topple the Islamic Republic and lead to the emergence of opposition groups that are under the control of the West. Iran, by virtue of its ethnic makeup, is, it's predominantly Persian, but there's a significant Azeri population. There are also Baluchis and Kurds. It is the major minority groups. And in spite of Western beliefs or claims that Iran is this authoritarian regime that controls everything and everybody, what we saw is that Iran's counterintelligence capabilities were actually very poor, very weak. And as such, Mossad was able to operate quite freely and both locating, identifying where key officials lived so they could be killed, and organizing and funding groups to carry out a variety of attacks. But we also saw that the same tactic that was employed in Russia to try to attack Russia's strategic bomber fleet was also employed in Iran, which further underscores that this was not just an Israeli operation. This had the full participation of the British, MI6, and my old organization, the Central Intelligence Agency. In looking at how this operation was constructed, I do believe that U.S. Cyber Command was actively involved in supporting the Israeli attacks carried out through Unit 8200 that were designed to blind, launch a cyber attack that would take out all of the radar in Iran and prevent the air defense systems from being able to operate effectively, leaving Iran vulnerable to attack. The belief in the West, I believe, was that this attack, this operation, would have decommissioned Iran for five days to more than a week. Turns out, a bad assumption. Iranian technicians, with the support and assistance of Russia, according to Pepe Escobar, were able to restore operations within 10 hours. And then Iran was able to start launching missile strikes on Israel. What we discovered is in the course of this 11-day war, 12-day war. So it started on the 13th. Ceasefire was declared for the 24th, so that's 13 days. That the air defense systems in Iran and Israel didn't work well. Israel's was just overwhelmed by Iranian capabilities. Iran's firing so many missiles that Israel's air defense system simply cannot keep up and would have shortly been exhausted had this war continued. On the Iranian front, they shot themselves in the foot. Russia had offered them air defense capabilities, and according to Pepe, Iran rejected it. And it was so foolish. But it's sort of human nature. You know, Iran was desperate to be liked, to be accepted by the West. There's still that, you know, the feeling that they're outside the club. They want to be inside the club. So they did everything that a good boy, good girl should do. They signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They allowed International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors to inspect nuclear facilities at places like Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan. And what did they get in return? They were attacked. Now, Russia reportedly had offered Iran a defense pact on the same lines of what it has signed with North Korea. And the Iranians apparently didn't want to go that route. They wanted to be maintain an independence. So they feared that if they pursued that route, that the United States would then be angry at them. Well, the United States was already angry at them, and there's nothing that Iran could do to stop that anger. I think what Iran has discovered over the course of the last 13 days is that they were betrayed, that they've learned that they cannot trust the West. And I started off by saying that this was Donald Trump's fire, and it was. Trump initially claimed that he knew everything about this. He knew the date and time of the attack. And so he knew it was going to take place 2 days before negotiations were supposed to occur in Oman between the United States and Iran. But Trump allowed it to take place. 36 hours later, Trump was claiming he didn't know anything. He knew nothing, which is a lie or a falsehood. But by then the damage was done. While Israel and Iran were trading shots, tit for tat, the problem Israel faces in attacking Iran is just Iran is enormous. It's 27 times the physical size of Israel. It's almost 12 times the size in terms of population. And the number of international airports, the number of power plants, the number of nuclear power facilities, it's more than Israel alone could attack and destroy. Then I use the comparison that if you look at Israel's firepower compared to Russia's, and the firepower that Russia has unleashed on Ukraine over the last 3 years and 5 months, it's been significant. Ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, air-launched cruise missiles, artillery, drones. Russia has hit Ukraine across the board, and yet it hasn't forced Ukraine to crumble and collapse, at least, not immediately. Well, are you trying to tell me that Israel can do more damage to Iran, which Iran is 3 times the size, physical size of Ukraine, and it has 3 times the population of Ukraine? So whatever damage that Israel was doing, it still was, I would describe it as pinpricks in terms of it wasn't decimating. So by contrast, though, Iran is hitting Israel, which is a very small target. Israel only has 2 ports. Israel only has 1 international airport. Israel only has 1 oil refinery. All of those targets have been attacked, including military targets, intelligence targets, and military airfields. Israel has been very forceful in clamping down on any kind of independent reporting, imposed censorship. So the Western audiences have been treated to a massive propaganda campaign portraying Israel as this great victor, Israel as this conquering hero, and Iran is just getting wasted. Well, it wasn't true, but that's how it was portrayed and perceived in the West. But the reality was otherwise. Israel and the Israeli military command knew that they were running out of air defense missiles, and already Iran had shredded the Iron Dome, the THAAD, the Patriot, David's Sling. All had been defeated by Iranian air assets, and that Israel would be facing more and more damage. There were reports that members of the Knesset were starting to flee Israel. They're going to military airfields, getting chartered flights out because of their fear. So this was not a military campaign that Israel could sustain. So this is where we get into what I call the Kabuki theater aspect of this whole affair. The start of the Kabuki theater was the Sunday morning strike, Saturday night late on the East Coast time, by the United States on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. So the Trump administration story is that, oh my God, we obliterated it. We destroyed the Iranian nuclear industry. They can never now make a bomb. That's all a lie. It's just not true. Iran knew in advance the attack was coming, whether they were informed by the United States, and there is precedent for that, and I'll talk about that in a moment, or whether they were given a tip-off by Russia and or China or both. Iran took time to vacate to haul away the enriched uranium that had been processed in those facilities. So when the United States launched this attack, Iran didn't mount any kind of air defense. Iran didn't launch any aircraft, made no attempt whatsoever to try to interfere with the U.S. flight. They let the United States have its moment of glory. And Trump immediately took a victory lap, and boy, the United States cheering, oh my God, we kicked ass, that kind of nonsense. But let's look at what was actually accomplished. As a result, because of this attack, Iran removed the enriched uranium to an unknown location, and that means it's no longer available to International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors. Now, the IAEA, who is completely penetrated by Western intelligence, is eager to get back in to do an inspection. But Iran the legislature has taken the first step on vacating any agreement with the IAEA, removing them from Iran's presence. I think they'd be wise to do so. You should not allow the International Atomic Energy Agency any more access to Iranian facilities. So not only has Trump not destroyed Iran's ability to enrich uranium, Trump has basically made the case for hardliners in Iran who insist that Iran needs to have a nuclear device in order to be safe from such attacks in the future. We'll see whether or not the Ayatollah Khamenei has changed his mind on that. Within 12 hours later, then, Iran delivered its Kabuki theater response by attacking the Al Udeid Air Force Base. Reportedly, some missiles were launched in Bahrain, but I've not seen any firm confirmation of that. But again, this was done pre-coordinated. Iran warned the United States and Qatar. All critical air assets and personnel were cleared out of those bases. Iran launched the same number of bombs that were dropped at Fordow. And, they got to save face. While that was taking place, in the Iranian foreign minister, Arakshi, had just been meeting in Moscow with President Vladimir Putin. Putin made it very clear that Iran was the victim of unlawful, illegal international aggression, and that Russia was prepared to assist Iran in any way to help Iran defend itself. Previously, as I mentioned, Iran had rejected attempts by Russia to produce a defense agreement, defense pact. Arachi reportedly carried a letter, personal letter from the Ayatollah Khamenei to Vladimir Putin. We do not know what it said. But I think it could have said one of two things. Either, I want to inform you that because of this attack on our people, attack on our nation, that Iran, we are now going to proceed and to develop a nuclear weapon. We believe that's the only way we can secure ourselves for the future. That's one possibility. Other possibility is Khamenei said, we appreciate your offer in the past to provide a defense pact with us and to provide all necessary technologies and personnel to help us defend ourselves. And we would like to accept your kind offer. I don't see, apart from those two things, I don't see any other message that he could have sent that would make sense in this context. And so within that, I think Russia is part of the deal negotiated both with the Iranian Pezeshkian, Arachi, to secure a ceasefire with Israel. And they also talk to Israel because Putin still has access and some influence with the Israelis by virtue of the fact that about 25% of Israel's population are Russian citizens. The ceasefire was announced. Israel made a last desperate strike on Iran. Iran retaliated by hitting Israel equally hard. And what was really interesting, fascinating, is Donald Trump erupted in anger, not just at Iran, but at Israel, and used the obscene term, they don't know what the fuck they are doing. Whoa. No American in 75 years has ever heard an American president speak like that about our Zionist friends. Now they have. And so Trump was also sending a message. Trump could have stopped this. He didn't. What we've seen, though, it has happened is that Iran has focused its attacks on hurting Israel, which it has. It has hurt Israel significantly. There's some claiming that Iran's the loser in this. I don't subscribe to that. I think that's nonsense. I think militarily, yeah, Iran suffered some damage, but as a result of this, one, it's forced a change in Iranian policy that they're now going to accept more help and assistance from Russia and China, assistance in the past that they didn't accept. Two, they have inflicted significant damage on Israel that Israel is not going to be able to repair immediately. Now, this does not alter the dire situation facing the Palestinians in Gaza. That'll be a topic for another conversation. But what we're witnessing right now is there's a tentative ceasefire. I'm skeptical that it will hold. I'm hopeful it will. But regardless of whether the ceasefire stays in place or not, Iran's path forward, I think, is going to include greater cooperation with Russia. You're going to see more Russian presence in Iran, a strengthening not only of their economic ties, but military and intelligence ties, which will be to the detriment of Israel and the United States. This was not about challenging Iran's ability to build a nuke or to stop enriching nuclear uranium. That's all a smokescreen. This is a replay of the invasion of Iraq 2003 to take out Saddam Hussein because of weapons of mass destruction. No, it was to take out Saddam Hussein to install what the West hoped would be a regime more friendly and cooperative with the West. Well, that ultimately failed. This was about regime change, trying to install rulers in Iran who will be the lackeys, the slaves of the United States, of the West, and will interfere and prevent Russia and China from continuing their development of BRICS as an alternative economic system. That's the key focus here, folks. That's where the attention needs to remain. I believe that Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping understand that, and they understand what a critical role Iran plays in that equation. So, going forward, this is not some are declaring this as a defeat for Russia and a defeat for Iran. I think it's anything but. It's been a defeat for the United States. They can celebrate and make all the wild claims they want. But Trump tried to start a fire to burn Iran to the ground. It backfired on him. It ended up catching Israel on fire. And he had to extinguish that fire quickly and did so with the assistance of Russia and China. But they also now saw that Trump is no longer someone you can trust. They will use him to the extent that they can. But I believe that Russia and China will continue to move forward with developing BRICS as an alternative to the dollar system, the U.S. hegemon system that is in the process of dying. At least that's how I perceive it. That's my assessment. That's where we stand. I look forward to your comments and criticisms. This is my effort to keep you up to date with these important dynamics. This is Countercurrents. Please hit the like and subscribe button. We're growing the audience. We're heading towards 100,000, which is good. I appreciate your support, and thank you for listening. I'm Larry Johnson. Goodbye.